Okay, so we just finished off looking at the literature review of this ScorePoint 5 paper. We noticed that he gives us the story, the context of how he it's revealing the gap. So he works from immigration to Mexican immigration, down through culture of Mexican immigration to food, specifically to nutritional deficits, specifically iron, and then, well, what is the cause of that? The only research that had been done only speculated that it was caused by reliance on mostly fast food, and so this student decided to find out if the homemade foods of immigrants, at least in the community that he can access, show the same kind of iron deficits as would be the case for fast food. All right, so that's really nice and specific. We've got a very clear question. Are these homemade foods not nutrient rich enough? Is that the problem? Because he can use this in a way to kind of confirm, because yes, it's mostly because of their reliance on fast food or not. So let's go back and look at the scoring guide again. So this one scores a 5 because if you look at the first descriptors here, right here, it focuses a topic of inquiry with clear and narrow parameters. All right, that definitely meets that criteria. By contrast, let's look at this particular paper. This one scored a 3 out of 5. So it passes, but it's the lowest level passing. This one is called Perceptions of Public Transportation in a Major Southeastern Population Hub. And let's take a look here at the literature review. All right, so when I read this, I had a little bit of trouble figuring out exactly what the question was going to be. I could tell what he was talking about, or she, that the public's perception of public transportation systems has a lot to do with how much they're supported and funded. That seemed to be the students' concern. But at different points along the way, I was wondering, well, where are you going? The student does go through the various literature, but the pieces of literature don't narrow down. It doesn't take us from dietary practices down to, okay, well, what about the homemade foods that are being cooked by these people? This one sort of talks about a variety of different factors that affect whether or not people are satisfied with or willing to use public transportation. And so by the time I get to the end, I don't know where we're going, and I'm not really very sure if we're going to get the question or not. In fact, when I reached the end of the literature review, I didn't know what the gap was. I really didn't know what the question. I had a kind of a guess, a hypothesis, but it should be clear. I shouldn't have to guess at it. So the question, it seems like this student saved it for the methods section here. And the question seems to be, the approach chosen to determine exactly how negative or positive the public's perception of rapid transit in a major southeastern United States population hub may be was an online survey. So it's very clumsily written. It's hard to understand a little bit. It just kind of lets us know, hey, I'm going to ask a survey question, or I'm going to ask a series of survey questions to find out how people feel about rapid transit. And it turns out that that's going to be focused on a particular part of Atlanta in the MARTA system. Now, it doesn't really justify why we need to know this particular information. It doesn't even clarify that there really even is a gap. Do surveys already exist showing whether or not Atlantans think that the MARTA system is worth supporting or not? Or it's not very clear about that. Or how is this going to add to a body of knowledge that's important for doing something like making the growing support for this particular system or whatever? It's just not there. And so I asked myself as I was going through the section where the person is describing the survey, well, why? Why are we doing this? Why are you asking these questions? Why is this so important? And I just was never really satisfied. I could never really find the answer. So that, going back to the scoring guide now, we can see that for a 3, it carries the focus or scope of a topic of inquiry. That's here. Oops. Topic of inquiry through the method and overall line of reasoning, even though the focus or scope might be limited. So this one, it says here on the second one, situates a topic of inquiry within relevant scholarly works of varying perspectives, although connections to some works may be unclear. Yeah, definitely unclear for that one as to how it all fits together. I was somewhat unclear that there actually was a gap, though the student seems to imply that there is one, but definitely not something that you come away with a strong sense that, hey, this was a really meaningful and purposeful thing to do.